philosophy brings about various issues, national and international. In the same context, today we have our guest, Professor Atindra Dahal, Kathmandu School of Law. Welcome to our program, sir.
Thank you so very much, Bishwa. I would love to extend my gratitude to the entire team of Aakash Television and all the viewers who have been on this screen.
Thank you so much. You are a researcher. You published many journals, papers on evaluation and curriculum and supervision and so on and so forth. So, talking personally, how satisfied are you with your current position?
Bishwa, satisfaction itself is a quite relative term to evaluate and make any assertions about it. A large number of people in the world express that they are largely dissatisfied with their current status. Probably there lies even an option that I'm fully satisfied about what I have been doing till now and what I should be doing ahead. Obviously, there are certain further expectations, ambitions, points to be devoted ahead. However, there is no any point to express dissatisfaction.
Very diplomatic answer, so to say. Ever since I knew you, I mean for last 15 years or even more than that, you were the student of literature. We taught together in certain institute as well. And now I found you switching into other various sectors, apart from teaching literature, so to say. So, how do you take this change edge?
I've not made a complete switch from literature, and I've tried to diversify the areas to some extent. The portion which is rather related with language and literature is also being carried in different institutions under various communication-related subjects. It's like you have just stated, these days as I broadly work pay my huge time at Kathmandu School of Law and Department of Political Science and the position of professor there. Therefore, I've been taking both of these streams parallelly because at the time when I was pursuing course in literature, at the same time I even had pursuing the course in political science too. After completion of MPhil in English language and literature philosophy, then I further pursued PhD in political science. Therefore, these two streams are being taken parallelly. So and so forth. Let's say, portion of one may be sometimes a bit low in comparison to another, but there is no complete detachment from both.
Okay. Compared to other friends of mine, I think you did your MPhil and PhD quite early, right? I think you did it in 2012.
I was 34 when I completed PhD, when I was awarded for PhD. It has been 7 years.
Okay, now let me get into your personal life as well. Hailing from Sankhua Sawa and coming to Kathmandu to pursue your education, how do you take your life as?
It was really a rough ride through a bumpy road whenever I came to Kathmandu. I was grown up in different type of academic environment. I never ever imagined that Nepal has an Anglo-Saxon, Anglophonic English medium education system. The way how I was grown up for higher secondary, secondary, or even up to bachelor's level education was completely a different matter. So when I came to Kathmandu first to pursue master's degree in 2016, it was completely a shocking environment to me because there was a huge gap.
You were in
Dhan
or somewhere else for your bachelor's?
Sampashala itself.
You did your bachelor's from there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Therefore, when I came to Kathmandu here and experienced the way the academic environment in Mallo was taking its speed, quite far advanced than what I was grown up and brought up, that even made me, to some extent, hopelessly helpless as well. But almost tried my level the best to pay any forward. Tried to pursue master's degree in English literature and philosophy, did MPhil and MA in political science, PhD in political science. Slowly and gradually, I could cope up the situation. But if I just make a recall on these two different phases of my academic life, it was indeed a risky travel, and it was much heartbreaking effort.
Great. So you are really an inspiration to many of the youths who feel like or who consider to shift from Sankhuasava or Japa or Dhan or even from Mahendranagar to come to Kathmandu and pursue education. Right? Landing onto the post of profession now. It's really great. So congratulations on that. So let me change the topic a little bit. Looking at the present political scenario of Nepal, what do you think the nation is leading to?
Whenever we try understanding any of concept, we shall be always applying three different approaches. Normally, developing conceptual understanding of any of issues, we would be basing ourselves on etymology, definition of scholars, and so on. But equally important section will be mapping the public perception and assumption too. So whenever we talk about the existing political situation, which has many of currents and cross currents being emerged, many people might be hopeless too. They might even they may be still thinking that the instability shall further persist and loom large. However, there is no option to be hopeful over the things going on. Hopelessness shall never drive us towards the positive result at any cost of time. A wrong road will never drive us to the right destination. Therefore, we have to try our level the best to drag politics into system. Even make our contribution, civic contribution. We might not even have political contribution, not being everyone is active political individual. But even civic contribution and civic consciousness also plays an important role. This like a political situation of the instability, frustration to the mass, anarchy, impunity, and many of disarrays and disorders might not last long much. There is no point that we can deteriorate further. We have already come into the bottom. So it obviously causes us to bounce back because there is no point to go to any downward trajectory now. So I'm hopeful.
So you do accept that we are in the lowest trajectory.
Yeah, we are at the bottommost point.
Bottommost point.
So there is no option that we get bounced back.
Well, signs and symptoms are vivid that clashes are bound to occur against the conventional political mainstreams. How do you take the emergence of these new forces?
I believe, very strongly believe, and was my proposition that established parties, rather I call aging parties or retiring parties, are being sufficiently challenged. Politics is such a dynamic move, there should be changes at the certain intervals. Occurrence and emergence of new political parties, new political force,
And even new ideologies.
New ideologies too should be very wholeheartedly welcome, expected, and even respected as well. That's the course of politics. Therefore, our common, let's say, political parties which are in existence for almost about 7 decades now should either modify themselves or they should very happily welcome the point of extinctions or their collapse. First thing, their primary interest of establishment is already fulfilled. If we check these political parties, Nepali Congress was established on aim of introducing constitutional monarchy in country, replacing the active Rana regime. CPN Yumal also had almost identical expectation with its establishment. Late coming established party, CPN Maoist, had come with an intention of introducing and endorsing federal republicanism in Nepal. their expectations have been fulfilled. And they had no longer any blueprint to how to go ahead than that point. So neither they are pro-public in terms of their concept, nor conducts, nor even conception. They don't have any idea about how they would go further rather than their initially set expectation would be achieved.
But people's expectations, also to say, the expectations of grassroots people are still not fulfilled.
Yeah.
Ideologies and many promises were kept,
Okay.
So, but now we seem at a loss because political parties have lost their ideology, so to say, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
And expectations of people have not been made as they make a huge, hue and cry before election. How do you take it as?
So, therefore, Vishwa, the old political parties no longer can deliver whatever people expect because their initial objective was something else that's already fulfilled. They did not have any blueprint about how would they march ahead after their initially set destination was over. So far, we talk about emergence of new political parties in this election. I consider those political parties as emotion right now, not an alternative. Whether they will really be an alternative for this classical conventional political system will be all defined with the stay and life of these emerging political parties for these 5 years. How will they present in their initial inning in the parliament will justify whether they will really be capable and devoted, or are they really committed. Do they have real commitment to serve people will be all justified within these 5 years. So emergence of political parties should be all considered as an emotion right now. But if they work good, they even may come as an option. They may advance from an emotion to option for conventional politics. But if they cannot really project better political characters, conducts, cannot even command better trust from the people.
And they have been encircled by a vicious circle of conventional thoughts and challenges like that. So how far will they be able to penetrate the challenges and get into their ideas or work?
This is mathematical magic. Only this is mathematical magic, because being encircled by few leaders, few conventional parties will make them no harm at all. If they remain devoted, if they remain ethical, if they remain valued. Nobody's loss, decay or damage shall be sponsored or caused by others. It will be by themselves and ourselves.
Okay.
If we remain fortified in ourselves, others, level the best effort also cannot harm anything at all.
Okay.
Because these all conventional, 3 major conventional parties in total may have tentatively 30 lakhs their cadres committed voters altogether. If we make a cumulative calculation of all 3 parties. Election Commission has published a list that 1 crore 80 lakh voters are there in voter list. Over 1 crore 50 lakh voters are purely independent, neutral voters.
Alright.
They choose the candidate who shall be able to deliver better as per their expectation, irrespective of fact, whatever political parties they are engaged in. So they force the back support of these aging political parties is substantially insignificant in compared to the neutral mass in terms of election. So though initially they may be encircled in terms of parliamentary business, currently when they have come with very limited numbers of members in parliament, all political parties might encircle them, might try their level the best to decay them. But provided if they remain committed and public, they always care themselves to be pro-public.
If they remain firm in the decision and
if they come with pro-public decision, if they present pro-public conducts, if they manifest pro-public commitment to the people, next 5 years of town rolls quite early. It will not be that late to them to have their rising days as a big power. But it depends how do they lead these 5 years. This is foundational. And more thing is that Nepalese people do not have that passion, that long passion.
Because we have already suffered for more than 30 years.
Yeah. And we cannot even be presenting an endless wet. Those like of political parties may even have an easy come and easy go sometimes. We can see the situation of Vivek Shaja party, which had almost similar type of fame and whim 5 years back. But since that party could not really manifest the expected political characteristics and conducts, it's deposited into footnote of history books of now. So if this
They faced the election, but
could not even make any
get a
significant, not any significant count.
Yeah.
Not the seat, not even count as well. So if these political parties which have taken their space this time too, may even undergo the same fate as well if they fail to present better conducts.
At what age, despite certain difficulties, these political parties do have their roles and should prove themselves. So people have already had a kind of frustration against such huge political parties, yet the election result is just the opposite. My point is, as people had expected that some new faces would come, or new faces more than what they have come now would appear, but it didn't happen. What do you think?
The primary reason is there were no very viable and dependable alternative process. Election sometimes comes to be the option of choice among all the worst candidates as well. There hardly will be an option for people to choose the good against the worst. If all the worst are competing and people are bound to make choose them, people shall obviously be trying to choose that which worst shall cause the less harm compared to other rather than boosting the society.
Which worst will cause less harm
rather than they will credit anything to the society. Second is, even if sometimes new forces, new political parties try to then make contest in election, our society will not be that very open to welcome them, because the system that we have adopted is a parliamentary form of the government. Unless you have significant number of members in parliament, they shall not initiate and endorse any change. Having one or two good faces at one particular point time or space might not cause any significant result at all. Had it been a presidential system, it would have affected a great deal. Even a single good individual appears from any of the constituency of the nation. So there are multiple reasons what might set an invisible setback for those like of environment that we are expecting. But I'm quite hopeful that setback also will be smashed away quite soon. And there will be so many new faces, very committed and devoted people, much proven and tested individual, expert, talented, technological minds in parliament, in government. Or I'm expecting a day where there shall be a situation of political meritocracy in Nepal.
All right, that's really great. Well, let me give a little bit differently now. You are involved in academic sector as a profession as well.
Okay.
So let us talk about some academic hopefulness as well. Do you think the academic space that we have achieved so far is up to the landmark of satisfaction, so far as university level education is concerned?
To be precise and candid in this issue, even people are expressing huge dissatisfaction. But being an academician, I rather make an alternative proposition here that we do not have a right to express dissatisfaction. We have to work to earn dignity and the prestige here and make the situation.
Compared to the academic flight that our neighbors have made in science and technology and other disciplines, so to say.
So, this is our duty. This indicates our failure. The nation's failure can be blamed to the politician. But being an academician, the failure that has come into academics, even we share a certain amount of responsibility by myself as well. However, politics might have direct, indirect leverage and influence on it. But to have a talk about comparative scenario, our friends, our neighboring countries have made a significant jump and very substantial positive quantum forward leap in terms of science, technology, and more pragmatic education. However, our education is still largely limited, being quite teleological for making job-creeping human minds. The modern education system is very biasly committed to produce English-speaking machines rather than much dutiful, virtuous, committed, good being. The concept of Diksha is being largely taken away from education, and it's being made only Shiksha, which awards them or makes them commission a merit certificate or graduation certificate rather than drilling expected behaviors and virtues.
You mean to say that instead of focusing more on employment or other aspects of economic resource gaining, we've got to focus on a spiritual dimension of education? My point is that ethical dimension of education?
Along with employment generation, along with inculcating entrepreneurial skill, along with making them equipped with market skills and so on, education is to be equally committed to make them a good human, a good social being.
That is the primary thing.
Yeah, responsible citizen.
Okay.
That's being largely missed in one side. So neither we are making the education come to that level of competence, it shall let the nation hold its high, nor the student or graduate themselves can have their dignity and self-values onto that scale. However, there have been some phenomenal developments and changes in a couple of years. We should not even completely make a blank mind blame game only. The literacy rate, which was almost only about 2% 70 years back, has come to more than 77% now.
That's really a
And
positive
that's positive issue. There have been high academic institutions into various nooks and corners of cities. So many Nepalese,
Despite challenges, it's a positive side.
So many Nepalese academicians have been having very prestigious and precious presence into many universities across the globe. So many graduates these days are parallelly getting exposed and having exposure into many other platforms like seminar, researches, so on and so forth. Therefore, there are some very gradual development changes, modifications. However, sometimes the essential quest, whatever education has to serve, is being slightly missed. So our effort, there is no any slackening points in terms of what people are applying. But we are slightly heading other way direction, sometimes it seems so.
Alright, another problem that we have noticed is majority of youths, be it educated or uneducated, opt for flying abroad. If the same ratio of brain drain retains in Nepal, what do you think will be the consequences in next 10 years or 20 years, so to say?
The first thing is, I'm not that very convinced with the phrase brain drain. Because everyone who has drain in other countries of the world does not have that level of brain, what for we have to really address them as the brain people, or let's say the mastermind people. Majority of them are into very menial type of jobs and other type of activities they have engaged therein. However, the flow of Nepali youth to foreign countries is excessively high. The exodus is quite heart-pinching in a couple of situations. There are two very strict And much disheartening consequences which can be seen. One is Nepal soon very soon Nepal gets trapped into the problem of aging.
Okay.
Aging shall to the
A large number of youths in the present scenario definitely indicates that there will be aging
Yeah.
because they will turn into aged
that
people.
will set and plunge our society into different type of depression, dementia, psychological stress, as well as serious shortfall into human resource for the country, whether that's the wage force or whether that's the force that works on the status of their mental capacity. One. Next, so many people of Nepalese origin shall be detached from their history, culture, origin, and they shall be living the life of frustration even there too because they exist nowhere.
Would you say
In other countries too.
the identity crisis
There
and
shall be an
cultural
identity
crisis?
cultural crisis of identity shall cause them and let's say might even bring them into the state of uneasy situations. More than that, this will really cause country to face a serious challenge in its financial and other type of growths too. It will lead us to have sustained poverty to the newer extent, a newer dimension. Because all humans go to other countries and they send us remittance, and either being remittance sustained economy is a good identity. And we also send that all money back to their own different countries because we consume their human resources and we consume the products, whatever is made into other countries.
Along with
Yeah.
intellectual capital, we've got to hire them here.
So we will be always making, we will exist as a country which shall make human and capital fly to other countries. And it may even question on the dignity of our education, the gravity of our education, because we will be a factory to produce cheap labor resource for other powerful and rich countries of the world. And those people who have been living there also might face some difficulties because since they avail themselves as a cheap labor force, their aboriginal and original people might make some uneasy or let's say unfriendly behavior, feeling that they have been challenging their employment market. So international feud, disharmony, dissent also might be reflected. They might even face other type of challenges in their lives, dignity, work, and many other aspects too.
Despite some possibilities of living a good life there, there are these challenges. Very well said. Well, let me talk about a little bit security issues
Okay.
in the present context of Nepal.
Mhm.
The present security system of the country is quite vulnerable so far as international interference is concerned. And due to the open border and many other reasons, Nepal has been seen, as a safe haven for various illegal activities. That's the saying of, that's the view of many scholars.
Mhm.
How do you evaluate it?
This is probably ever the first time in history of Nepal that we have been so vulnerable in terms of security, external security, border security. Not only that, the internal security and intactness of nation is also brought into a huge disarray now. It's like you have said, the interventions of different forms, visible and invisible, is quite on rising graph. Many political parties and their leaders also have very repeatedly stated that they are not in a position to endorse and enforce activities of their expectation because they have to face those like of encroachment or intervention, interference from others. So there are two different issues that I have raised. One, the political interference from other countries or their interest to micromanage us from different spheres. This is weakness of our politicians. If they try expecting others' viewpoint, if they take or love to take others' favor, they always love to prevail over. So The way how other countries are trying to make political interference here, it should be politically corrected. There should be commitment in our political leaders to have their duties done by themselves, their business handled by themselves. We are equally sovereign countries to world. They are always free to pass very gentle suggestions and advice whenever we seek, but uninvited suggestions are subject of an unwelcome. So they should be quite daring in order to make diplomatic status standard and follow the diplomatic etiquette with foreign leaders, their hosts, and so on. So far, you have talked the security in terms of border laxity. That does not make any of challenge to Nepal itself. Open borders of Nepal with India and to some extent to even other China as well, though principally in documented way we do have closed border, but still practices take place in that way. The situation of open border shall not force any challenge to Nepal itself because no country in the world has to have any revenge or any damage to Nepal for their way. Nepal is not yet subject of their concern. But the way how we are positioned in a cockpit between two very great countries of the world with exactly opposite political ideology, one the largest democracy and one the largest socialism, a socialist country of the world. This open border with India can be misused by other countries of the world with their hidden interest of working against either India or China by stationing themselves here. So, stable Nepal, strong Nepal, secure Nepal should be the primary concern of Nepal, not only quote unquote Vishwaji, it should be equally pressing a concern and urging issue of the security and stability of these two our broad and huge countries too. So they should help us to be stable and secure in terms of border.
For their security.
For their security.
Okay.
So safe Nepal and stable Nepal is equally important for China and India too. Nepal needs to have that like of diplomatic and strategical leader who can bring these two countries into dialogue and make them work for their favor and even apply better positive benefit, let's say strategies to Nepal. Nepal has tremendous amount of opportunity to apply small country strategy to bring these two powers for the comfort and convenience of ours.
That's great. We are towards the end of the program. Yet one question remains
Okay.
because as sensible citizens, we cannot just turn our deaf ears to impunity and lawlessness of the country.
Okay.
So women and girls from the Dalit community or from marginalized community or even from every community have been particularly at risk of sexual violence and other types of violence that we have seen. Let us take the Dhan case and Sarkit case. In number, we have been educated more, data shows, but in practice we are turning less human, so to say. So we have lost the ground of humanity. Like someone is beating someone very cruelly and we are taking photos. What do you think is the cause of all such inhuman tolerance?
Okay. The primary cause is that we still largely failed to cultivate humanity, virtues, ethics into the people. Being educated does not really indicate somebody has capacity to read, write, or utter the words and make some compositions, make papers, and so on. Education shall be best reflected not by the state of situation of commissioning certificate, rather it gets indicated by the state of presenting the conducts and behaviors. So the situation, this like of social displeasures or these like of situations which are not very welcoming move to society are taking place into the different paths. The one primary reason may be that those people who are engaged in those like a felony and crimes may be quite close connected list of the people into the power, and they might have that like of oversized confidence to engage into these like of criminal behaviors. Another is the way how events or situation have been narrated might not be always true to that extent. The
As
fallacy
shown
of
in the media.
the fallacy of red herring always takes place everywhere else. Most of us always try to build our perception on the basis of secondary information which are here in the media rather than understanding the ground reality. However, at no excuses we can celebrate the pain and miseries of other victims. There may be certain weakness, but celebrating pain and miseries will no longer be human again. Therefore, we should have our, let's say, support and voice at the side of those people who are victimized. The another reason maybe that our security agencies, bureaucracy, and other institutions which are supposed to collectively work to demoralize the perpetrators, to bring the person who engages into violence into sentence are not being that active. Most of our agencies which work in those like of institutions are reactive in nature rather than proactive. No police will proceed the case unless there is a field register or an application, a petition register. No court tries to bring a suo motu into process unless somebody goes to file a case. So being state mechanism and apparatus, it even may be their responsibility to proactively work whether there shall be any registration of complaint or not. But there is no that like a proactive mechanism as well. The person who is victim is already victim, and the way the approaches that we have set up for him or her to process for remedy or support from government side further victimizes him or her. Therefore also they might not have been very hopeful with the system. So there are multiple reasons parallelly playing, but the greatest solution of all the problems is modifying self and building better humanity in ourselves. If we develop ourselves with ethics, morality, concept of justice, these all work better. So far you discussed or talked about law, police, or mechanism, so on. Those all are needed only if people do not have conscience. Vishwaji, I live in one of the remote districts of place of Shankwasava district. So many people of not much educated circle live there. But they have not thrashed one another, they do not beat one another, they do not fight one another.
To a great extent.
To a great extent. It is not because they know the law. It is not because they are scared that if one fights with other or beats other, they
It is not because they are highly educated as well.
It's not because they are aware about existing law and they are scared of the law. It's because they have conscience that committing this like of conduct will not be better for the society, and it does not make me present as a better human. So if people do have conscience, if citizens do have conscience, then no law, no these like of forces will even be much mandatory in society. The consciousness in citizens makes them function automatically. So the primary solution will be if we try making all individuals quite conscious in their conducts, quite committed in terms of their idea, if ethical in terms of their behavior, if they try to project whether their conducts are presenting enough morality, things shall get auto-corrected and adjusted. So let the things be automated.
Thank you so much, Mr. Professor.
Yeah.
Despite the lack of your time, or so to say, despite your hectic schedule, you got here and given us love. So from my personal side and from Aakash Television, I really express my thanks or gratitude and wish you all the best in the days to come.
Thank you so very much, Bishwa sir. I do love to extend zillion ton thanks to you, entire Aakash Television team, and all the viewers who of you have been following me or seeing me on the screen now. Wish everybody will have better time ahead. Please stay safe, stay sound. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, my dear audience. In the days to come as well, I'll try my best to raise different issues and have discussions. Thank you so much. Stay safe.